Hi, boys and girls, it's Mr. Yates, and if you're watching this video, I'm really proud of you because that means that you've been recording your shadow measurements in your backyard or wherever you have been doing that for the last couple of weeks, and awesome job sticking with it. What we're going to do today in this video is explain to you the directions about what to do once you've finished up. Go ahead today and you make sure that you go outside one more time at 12 noon to record the shadow length, and then want you to watch this video. So if you haven't recorded the shadow today at noon, pause the video, go out and do that, and then come back and finish up the video when you've done that. Once you have your shadow data, that means all the measurements in a chart. I have a chart I did in Microsoft Word to sort of show you what I'm talking about. Here what I did is I put the day and then the length, and then I just decided to use millimeters. Originally I started off with inches and I had a pretty short object, but I decided to move it to a taller object, and I decided to use millimeters because it's more precise. It's able to give me a little bit easier way to measure it. So whatever you use, whether it's inches, centimeters, millimeters, if you just put rocks to measure it, that's fine too. Just as long as you use the same unit of measurement all the way through. Now the next step is to take a look at this chart, take a look at your chart, and I want you to write what you notice about the length of the shadow over time. So that means what you want to do is you want to take a look at your shadow data. That means, and the shadow data I'm talking about basically is all this stuff right here. Oops, I was going to write it. Yeah, it's all this stuff right down along here. It's the length of the shadow every single day. And I want you to just look at it as it goes along day by day. You should have quite a few days of measurement here. And as you go along, you should notice something. And I want you to look and see on your own chart, are the numbers getting smaller, or are the numbers getting bigger, or are the numbers staying the same? I noticed a trend with mine, and I don't want to say that everyone's trend is going to be the same, but you probably are going to have the same trend that happened with me. So I noticed what I've noticed about it. I said, well, I've noticed with mine is that the shadow length is getting, well, actually, it seems like, yeah, I noticed up here. Yeah, definitely. I started at 250 millimeters. And when I measured it yesterday, I noticed that, yeah, it was down to 195 millimeters. So it looks like throughout the entire time I've been measuring, yeah, it keeps getting smaller, yeah, and smaller and smaller and smaller. It keeps getting smaller the whole way through. So what I've noticed about mine, my observation that I would write down, was that the length of my shadows got smaller over time. So I want you to take a look at your shadow data and see what you say. Is your shadow length getting bigger over time? Or is it getting smaller over time? Or is it staying the same? I could write down what you notice about yours. Once you've written down what you've noticed about it, I want you to do the following thing. Now, I was going to print out my shadow data on a chart and show you how I'd show it, but I ran out of toner in my printer. So I wrote a pretend piece of paper to show me. If you were writing your chart on a piece of paper, you would show your chart just like this. I think most of you probably have been writing it down on lined paper instead of doing like what I did, and that's fine. The next step after you've looked at your shadow information, all the lengths, and you've written down what you think you've noticed about it, then what I want you to do is go to step 4 on your agenda, and it says, click to show your chart in a Flipgrid video and tell me what you noticed about the length of the shadow. So for example, what I would do is I would put my shadow chart. It doesn't have anything in it because it's just a sample idea. It's not really what I wrote. I put mine on the screen here. But I would say this is my shadow chart information. These are the days that I measured. These are the lengths that I noticed. And you'd show the whole thing, and you would then say, what I noticed is that, and then you would say what you noticed. For me, I said, well, I noticed that the shadow length was getting shorter over time. You could say the shadow length is getting longer, or you could say it hasn't changed. But I want you to make sure you speak loudly and show it close up so that I can see and hear what you've got in your shadow chart. And I just want to say one more time, I'm really proud of you for doing this, boys and girls. Thank you for doing this. Hopefully you're going to be learning something about what happens to the position of the Earth and the sun over time based on what the shadow is. And that's the next thing we're going to do after this. Step 5 is I'd like you to do some research for me. And I'll put in a few links to maybe get an idea of why the shadow is changing. So I want you in the next step is to type into Microsoft Forms your idea in a few sentences about why the shadow changed over time. What caused it to change? I'll put in a few links to sort of help you out to see that, but I'd like you to tell me what you found, what you've noticed about it. Why does the shadow change? And then you're done. And boys, hi, boys and girls, this is Mr. Yates. I forgot one thing I wanted to add in about writing the sentence after you're done doing your research about why the shadow changed over time. And the one thing I want to emphasize about this is when you get to typing it, I want you to make sure that you type only a 12-word sentence. So that's why I emphasize right here, 12 words, no more, no less. I want you to focus on only keeping it to 12 words that explain why the shadow you measured changed over time. However, what I want you to do is you are allowed to also use a starter. Now, a starter means that you're going to be using something, and I'll show you an example of what a starter looks like right here. So you could type something like this, and I'll just highlight it right down here. So you know, and you can be typing like, as a starter, these won't count as your actual, these won't count as your actual words. So you could type your answer here for your starter. You could say like the shadow, can't really see that, so I'll just write it over here so you can see a little bit better. You can say like the shadow I measured changed over time because. That entire phrase, the shadow I measured changed over time because this entire thing that you wrote right here, that I wrote right here, is a starter. And that means that it won't count as your 12 words. That starter is something that you can use and it won't count as your 12 words. So after you say the shadow I measured changed over time because, then you can give me the 12-word sentence that would explain why it changed. If you have any questions, just email me. I'm going to be chilling here at the beach, and I'll be ready to get your questions if you email me. Thanks, boys and girls. Bye-bye.